Somewhere in your system, a perfectly healthy thread may never get picked to run. Today, what starvation actually is, why it happens, and how to fix it. Before we get into the mechanics, here's the shape of what's ahead. First, we'll pin down exactly what starvation means, a thread that's ready to run but keeps getting skipped. Then we'll look at the handful of root causes that produce it: unfair locks, priority scheduling, and greedy resource hogging. From there, we'll separate starvation from its two lookalikes, deadlock and livelock, because mixing them up leads to the wrong fix. And finally, we'll cover how it actually gets fixed in real systems through fairness mechanisms like aging and priority inheritance. 4 short stops, one underlying idea: somewhere in your system, the rule for who goes next might be quietly failing one specific thread over and over again. Starvation is what happens when a thread or process is ready and able to run, but keeps getting skipped over indefinitely. It's a subtle failure because the system as a whole looks completely healthy, work is getting done, throughput looks fine, nothing has crashed. But zoom in on one specific thread and you'll find it sitting in the ready queue, cycling to the back every single time, never quite reaching the front. This is fundamentally different from a crash or a hang. The thread isn't broken and the system isn't stuck. It's simply losing over and over against whatever rule decides who goes next. And because nothing looks obviously wrong at the system level, starvation can run silently in production for a long time before anyone notices the pattern. Starvation tends to sneak in through one of 3 doors. The first is unfair locking, a mutex or semaphore that hands access to whichever thread happens to ask at the right moment, rather than whichever thread has been waiting longest. The second is priority-based scheduling, where higher priority work keeps arriving and always jumps the queue ahead of lower priority tasks, no matter how long they've waited. The third is resource hogging, a thread that holds a lock, a connection, or a CPU time slice far longer than it actually needs, starving everyone else waiting behind it. Each of these causes looks different in code, but they share the same underlying pattern. Whatever criterion decides who goes next, the same thread keeps losing that decision every time it's made. Priority-based scheduling is probably the most common source of real-world starvation. Picture a scheduler that always runs the highest priority ready task first. As long as high priority work keeps arriving, and in a busy system it usually does, a low priority task can sit in the ready queue forever, technically runnable but never actually chosen. There's a closely related failure called priority inversion, where a low priority thread is holding a lock that a high priority thread urgently needs, but the low priority thread itself gets stuck behind unrelated medium priority work. So the high priority thread ends up waiting on the lowest priority thread in the system, indirectly. This exact bug once caused mysterious resets on NASA's Mars Pathfinder rover, which is part of why priority inversion is now a textbook case study in operating systems courses. The classic textbook example is the reader's writer's problem. Multiple reader threads can safely hold a shared lock at the same time since they're only reading, not modifying anything. The trouble starts when readers keep arriving in an overlapping stream. As soon as one reader releases the lock, another has usually already grabbed it, so the shared lock is almost never completely free. Meanwhile, a writer thread needs exclusive access, which means it has to wait for every single reader to finish before it can proceed. If readers never stop arriving, that moment of every reader is done may simply never occur and the writer starves indefinitely, even though the system keeps serving reader after reader without any problem at all. It's worth being precise about the difference between starvation, deadlock, and livelock, because they're often confused but demand completely different fixes. In a deadlock, every involved thread is frozen, a circular wait where each thread holds a resource another one needs, and nothing in that cycle can ever move again. In a livelock, threads stay actively busy, but they keep reacting to each other in a way that prevents any real progress, like 2 people repeatedly stepping aside for each other in a hallway. Starvation is different from both. The system overall keeps making genuine progress, work keeps completing, but one particular thread just never gets its turn under the current rules. Same visible symptom, a thread that isn't advancing, but 3 distinct root causes. In production, starvation usually shows up first in your latency percentiles, not in an obvious error or alert. Your P50 and P90 wait times might look completely normal: 8 milliseconds, 22 milliseconds, while your P999 balloons out to several seconds, because a small number of unlucky threads are consistently losing the scheduling decision. If you pull a thread dump during that window, the telltale sign is seeing the exact same thread sitting in a waiting state, run after run, while everything around it keeps cycling normally. That combination, a wildly disproportionate tail latency paired with the same thread repeatedly stuck waiting, is usually enough to confirm starvation rather than simple contention or load. Fixing starvation comes down to deliberately building real fairness into whatever is making the who goes next decision. FIFO or ticket locks guarantee that whoever arrived first gets served first, removing the chance of being perpetually outraced. Aging is another powerful technique. A waiting thread's effective priority gradually increases the longer it waits, until it eventually outranks even the busiest high-priority traffic. Priority inheritance directly solves priority inversion by temporarily lending a blocking thread the priority of whoever's waiting on it. Modern operating systems bake a lot of this in already. Linux's completely fair scheduler, for example, is explicitly designed to bound how long any runnable thread can be denied CPU time. But fairness is never fully automatic. It has to be deliberately designed into your locks and your schedulers and monitored continuously in production. Thanks for watching.